A rusted mining cart deep beneath the Nevada desert. A missing student's clothes still clinging to his bones. And a small, dust-covered notebook beside him, filled with messages no one was ever meant to read. For 5 long years, Caleb Arden's family prayed for answers. Search teams combed the desert, volunteers scanned the abandoned tunnels, and investigators followed every lead, until all hope seemed gone. But when his remains were finally discovered in one of the oldest, most dangerous shafts of the Nevada mine, what they found beside him changed everything. And the last entries in his notebook? They revealed a truth far darker than anyone imagined. If you're ready to hear the full story of what really happened to Caleb, and how the final clues were uncovered, make sure you support the channel. Like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Now, let's begin. Caleb Arden wasn't the kind of young man who faded into the background. At 26, he carried a calm magnetism that made people lean in when he spoke. His voice was warm but steady, the kind that made you believe every word was well thought out. His friends described him as a walking compass, grounded, reliable, impossible to mislead. Even in tense moments, Caleb maintained an unshakable sense of direction, as though life had handed him an internal map others lacked. Caleb grew up in Fallon, Nevada, a small community with long stretches of flat land and a sky that always felt one size too big. Fallon wasn't famous for much except its vast farmlands, air base, and the desert stretching endlessly beyond the last row of houses. It was a place that raised quiet people, practical thinkers who understood the language of the land, the sound of wind shifting sand, the crackling warning of dry brush, the silence before a dust storm. From childhood, Caleb was obsessed with rocks. While other kids collected toy cars, he collected quartz fragments, flecks of copper, and the strange glassy stones shaped by lightning strikes. His mother joked that if he ever got lost, they'd find him by following the trail of tiny rocks he left behind. His father, a former construction foreman, encouraged the curiosity. "Every stone has a story," he told Caleb. "You just have to learn how to read it." That simple phrase turned into Caleb's entire life path. By the time he reached college, he was pursuing geology with a passion that startled his professors. While some students chased good grades, Caleb chased deeper meaning. He wanted to understand the breadth of the earth, how mountains rose, how tunnels collapsed, how ancient miners once carved their lives into the rock. After finishing his undergraduate degree, he entered a graduate geology program at a university in Reno. His thesis proposal was ambitious, assessing the stability of abandoned Nevada mining tunnels and identifying hidden fault lines through underground mineral patterns. Most students chose straightforward topics. Not Caleb. He chose a project that required hands-on exploration of long-forgotten mines scattered across some of the most isolated land in the state. His advisor warned him about the risks. Old mines were unpredictable, unstable structures with potential pockets of bad air, toxic gases, or sudden cave-ins. Caleb acknowledged the dangers, but insisted on taking the necessary precautions. He had experience navigating collapsed structures and worked part-time with a geological survey team that taught him to use high-frequency ground scanners and air quality monitors. Still, his advisor insisted he never explore alone. And mostly, Caleb listened. Mostly. It was late September, the tail end of desert summer, when the sun burned more patiently but no less fiercely. Caleb had planned to drive out to Crescent Valley, a secluded region marked by hills of copper, ochre, and slate. The area held dozens of abandoned mine entrances scattered across the foothills, but he was interested in one site above all, the Ridgepoint Mine, a defunct silver mine known for sporadic collapses during the early 1900s. Ridgepoint wasn't just another mine to Caleb. It was a geological marvel in his eyes, a rare opportunity to examine a network of tunnels shaped by decades of extraction and natural seismic shifts. He spent the morning preparing his equipment: portable scanner, headlamp and backup batteries, water and electrolyte pouches, handheld oxygen meter, geological journal, emergency distress beacon. His roommate, Jordan, leaned against the doorframe as Caleb packed. "Going out alone again?" he asked. Caleb gave a reassuring grin. "Only for a few hours. Ridgepoint isn't far, and I'm staying near the surface chambers. I'll be back by dinner." Jordan wanted to object, but knew better. "At least keep your phone on. You lose signal, come home." "Yes, Dad," Caleb joked, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. He left the apartment at 1:12 p.m. The last thing he said was, "Don't wait up." But Jordan did wait up. And eventually, everyone else did too. Locals living near Crescent Valley reported seeing a white Toyota Tacoma parked near the Ridgepoint foothills around 2:40 p.m. A single man, believed to be Caleb, walked toward the mining entrance, notebook in hand. No one saw him after that. When he didn't return home by midnight, Jordan called him repeatedly. Every call went straight to voicemail. By morning, Jordan contacted campus security, who contacted the police. Within hours, a search operation began. Caleb's parents drove 4 hours straight the moment they got the call. "I'm sure he's just stuck," his mother insisted, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "A collapsed tunnel, maybe his battery died, he wouldn't just vanish." But as the hours turned into days, worry choked the town. The first 48 hours were chaos mixed with determination. Volunteers from Fallon, Elko, Battle Mountain, and even Reno poured into Crescent Valley. Some didn't know Caleb personally, but recognized the desperation of his parents, hoping someone would do the same for their child. The sheriff's office set up a base near the Ridgepoint mine entrance. Search and rescue teams lined the perimeter. Drones flew overhead. Dogs sniffed through scrub and sagebrush. Helicopters scanned from above. On the first day, they found Caleb's car exactly where witnesses reported it, parked neatly beside a stretch of gray rock. Nothing seemed disturbed. His backpack was missing, meaning he carried all his gear with him. On day 2, they discovered footprints leading toward the entrance of Ridgepoint. The prints matched the tread on Caleb's hiking boots. The entrance was partially collapsed, not unusual for old mines. But rescuers noticed something else. Deeper inside, the collapse seemed more recent. The rock face showed dust and fractured shale that hadn't weathered yet. Something had caused a structural shift in the last 24 to 48 hours. But there was no way to know whether Caleb was inside, or trapped, or buried. Rescue teams attempted to drill through the collapsed entrance, but the tunnel's unstable structure forced them to retreat. Every engineer said the same thing. "You can't send anyone in until we reinforce the beams. One wrong vibration, and the whole section drops." Caleb's father clenched his fists. "Reinforce it, then." "We're trying, sir, but these things take time." Time. That was the enemy. By week 2, volunteers thinned out. By week 3, the desert became quiet again. The sheriff's office insisted they were still investigating, but privately, they admitted the odds were grim. They found no signs of Caleb except a single item, his cracked oxygen meter near a secondary ravine. It was covered in dust, as though it had been dropped mid-stride. That discovery fueled more questions. Had Caleb tried to climb out through another route? Had he fallen? Had he gotten disoriented? Or did someone, or something, make him drop it? Still, no evidence suggested foul play. Everything pointed to a tragic accident. But his parents wouldn't give up. Every 3 months, they returned to Crescent Valley to request new searches, new digs, new drone scans. Sometimes authorities agreed, sometimes they didn't. Funding was limited, manpower even more so. But the Ardens persisted, raising money, hiring private crews, and pushing the case into local newspapers at least twice a year. People began calling the case the Ghost of Ridgepoint, and yet the valley held its silence. Time bruises, but it also blurs. By the 5th anniversary of Caleb's disappearance, life had moved forward for everyone except his family. His mother still kept his room exactly the way he left it, bed made, journals on the desk, spare rocks lined neatly on the window ledge. His father spoke less than he used to, as though each sentence required too much energy. Jordan, Caleb's former roommate, struggled with guilt for years. He replayed their final conversation countless times, wondering if he should have insisted on going along. But hindsight offers clarity the present never does. Then, 5 years and 1 month after Caleb vanished, an unexpected development shook Crescent Valley. A new renewable energy initiative aimed to map underground cavities for geothermal potential. Engineers deployed advanced scanning equipment, far more powerful than the tech used 5 years earlier. While analyzing the subsurface of the Ridgepoint region, they detected something unusual. A hidden cavity far below the collapsed entrance. Large enough to hold mining equipment. Possibly large enough to hold a person. The geologists filed a report immediately. The county authorized a controlled excavation. Reinforcement crews arrived within 48 hours. For the first time in half a decade, Ridgepoint Mine was being opened again. Caleb's parents were notified. His mother broke down crying. His father simply said, "We're coming." The excavation was slow, deliberate, and dangerous. Ridgepoint's tunnels were old, carved by miners who didn't always prioritize long-term stability. Reinforcement beams had rotted. Rock layers had shifted. By day 4, workers unearthed old tools, decayed wood fragments, and iron rails from the original mining cart tracks. By day 6, they reached a lower chamber that had once been an ore-loading tunnel. It was partially intact, but the far end disappeared into blackness. On day 7, something changed. As workers drilled into a sealed rock wall, they felt a sudden rush of air, sour, stale, compressed for who knows how long. A sign there was open space beyond. Then the wall cracked. When it split open, headlamps flickered into the chamber beyond. What they saw left the entire team frozen. Inside the newly exposed tunnel sat an old mining cart, rusted through, leaning slightly to the left, and covered in layers of gray dust that looked almost like snow in the dim light. The cart rested beside a rail track that had long since buckled from subterranean pressure. At first, the workers saw only the cart. Then they noticed what was inside it. A shape. A human shape. Slumped, bones curled in a quiet, heartbreaking posture. Several workers turned away. One muttered a prayer under his breath. The medical examiner arrived within hours. By then, word had already reached the Arden family. When they arrived, the sheriff met them at the entrance. His eyes were soft but heavy. "We found someone," he said. "We believe it's your son." Caleb's mother collapsed into her husband's arms, sobbing. His father stared ahead with a hollow expression. "Show me," he said. But safety protocol forbade family from entering unstable tunnels. They had to wait, painfully, excruciatingly. By nightfall, the remains were recovered and transported out of the valley with silent reverence. Dental comparisons confirmed it. So did remnants of clothing fibers. Even the worn metal buckle from Caleb's backpack strap was found near the cart. But what puzzled investigators was how he ended up there. After examining the tunnel, geologists proposed this sequence. 1. Caleb entered through a secondary fissure, a crack not visible from the main entrance 5 years ago. 2. While exploring, an upper shaft collapsed behind him, sealing him in. 3. He moved deeper into the mine, seeking another exit. 4. The mining cart, derailed decades earlier, blocked his path. 5. Caleb climbed into the cart, possibly to rest or to conserve energy. 6. He survived for an unknown period, hours or days, before finally succumbing to oxygen depletion. But the hardest detail was the least scientific: the position of his hands. Caleb's skeletal palms were drawn inward toward his chest, as though he had been protecting something. And he had. Tucked beneath his ribcage was a weathered notebook, the same one he carried everywhere. Most pages were damaged beyond recovery. But one sentence survived. Written shakily, with trembling strokes, were the words, "If you find me, tell my family I tried." When the words were read aloud to Caleb's mother, she broke completely, her sobs echoing through the quiet room. His father sat beside her, gripping her hand so tightly his knuckles turned white. A single tear slid down his cheek, the first he had shown in years. Caleb's funeral drew people from across the state. Students, professors, hikers, miners, volunteers, anyone who had searched for him, prayed for him, or simply remembered his story. They gathered under a wide Nevada sky streaked with soft gold and violet. The wind was gentle that day, almost respectful. There were no long speeches, just quiet grief. Caleb's father placed his son's notebook, the battered one recovered from the cart, atop the closed casket. His mother whispered, "We found you, sweetheart. We found you." The pain was immeasurable, but so was the relief. The not knowing had finally ended. Caleb's case triggered statewide reform. Over 70 abandoned mines were re-evaluated. Many sealed permanently. Warning systems improved. Geographic surveys expanded. Funding increased. His story became a reminder written into local safety codes. Never enter a mine alone. Never assume silence means safety. Always respect the earth beneath your feet. Some hikers say Ridgepoint still feels heavy, not haunted, but solemn. As if the mine remembers. As if it still holds the echo of a young man's final footsteps and the quiet bravery of his last message. And sometimes, late evening wanderers claim they hear faint tapping beneath the ground. Maybe it's just shifting rock. Or maybe it's a reminder of a student who refused to give up, even as the world above searched desperately for him.